Welcome to another episode of the Swords and Sports Podcast. One man's journey to read 52 fantasy books in 52 weeks and create 52 podcasts documenting the experience. I am your host, Mike Mogues, the man embarking on this journey. And this week, I'm joined by the incredible author of We Are the Dead. It's Mike Shackle. The author interview is coming on right after some basic announcements, so please stick around for about a minute or two. As a quick self-promo, you can find this podcast on all your podcast listening platforms and YouTube. So, like, subscribe, rate, do all that basic stuff that I gotta announce every episode. The more you do it, the less I'm going to talk about it. Now I'm going to talk about it every episode. For all details about upcoming episodes, please check out the social medias. They're all at the handle at Swords and Sports. On Instagram, you can find incredible minute clips about the intros, basically, of the episodes, and sometimes, occasionally, some of the funnier stuff that is non-spoilerly. That's a hard word. And Twitter, of course, has all the basic announcement information stuff. Let's do this. The book is We Are the Dead. The author is Mike Shackle. The series is The Last War, number 1. It was published on August 8th, 2019. It is 488 pages on the paperback edition. And the publisher is the hardest one to say, Galansks. As a spoiler warning, this podcast contains spoilers for the following book, We Are the Dead by Mike Shackle. So if you have not read the book yet, consider this your one of, I think, 3 warnings, because I think I do it 2 more times in the interview. Without further ado, someone I had an absolutely amazing time, and I cannot reiterate that enough because Mike was awesome. Presenting Mike Shackle. It's another week of the Swords and Sports Podcast, and I am so excited because I am joined by the one and only author of We Are the Dead, which is book 1 of The Last War. It's Mike Shackle. Welcome to the show.
Hey, how are you?
I'm doing good. First question, and it's a hot one. At age 11, you had your story, The Ultra Warrior, published in the school paper, and parents were pissed about the violence. Is that the youngest? Is that the youngest that people have ever tried to cancel an author?
I wish I had a copy of it now. I've got vague memories of bits of the story, but it was very violent, and I think I just discovered The Punisher at the time, so I think it was a bit of a science fiction riff on The Punisher anyway. But I remember the English teacher. His name was Jon Snow.
No way.
Yeah.
Is that for real?
Yeah, for real. And he was just the coolest guy. And he printed this story of ultra violence, and all these parents complained, and he just stood his ground. He said it's a great story. And you might not like it, but I think it's great, and I'm going to encourage it. And he was wonderful. But it's funny because I then went to another school, which is a very prim and proper British public school, and they hated the stuff I was writing. I
weren't a fan.
Yeah, no, it was all, if you're going to write, you got to be literary and all that kind of nonsense. So. Yeah, it was a good man. I'll always remember Jon Snow.
So do we all. Did you notice, like, you stopped getting invited to play dates and stuff after that for a little bit till the heat cooled off?
No, I not really. I don't think so. I mean, it was good. It was a good school, good bunch of people. I enjoyed it.
I wish we could acquire a copy of that. I feel like it would be amazing.
That I don't know. But,
I think Jon Snow is going to be very difficult to find.
I part of me would love to track him down actually and just say thank you. I think it's a really tough job being a teacher. I as a parent of 2 young kids, I know how difficult it is just dealing with them on a day-to-day basis, and I love them. Let alone having a bunch of strangers' children come in and be difficult and everything else. So, teachers are amazing people, and he had a big influence on my life. So he deserves thanks.
So thanks, Jon Snow, because without you, we might not have this book. I have a feeling that Googling him is going to be a nightmare. Impossible. The SEO on that is going to be... You have an interesting bio. What royalty did you cook for?
So I got this. I mean, I left. I didn't go to university or stuff like that, and I'd spent a couple of years working in the UK. They call them department stores where they sell everything. I
Okay,
spent a couple of years selling washing machines, just because
I had a
I
question
didn't
on
know I
that.
didn't know what else to do, and I got off this job, and it paid money, and it was good people to hang out with. And then I just had this feeling that I was just wasting my life. And I was doing evening classes and various things, and someone there said, we have this job going at this catering company, and they do all these cool events, from the Open Golf Tournament to Ascot horse racing and all that sort of stuff. And do you want to have a chat with them? And I went along, and ended up getting this job, and they did the catering for number 10 Downing Street, where the Prime Minister
Okay.
lives and resides, and they did all the catering for the British royal family. So whether it was Buckingham Palace or St James's Palace, where Charles was, I think Diana was in Kensington Palace. So we would just go to all these amazing places and do spectacular dinners for hundreds of people. And it was great. I did it for 3 years, and loved it.
I mean, what a job to fall into. I was hoping that like you were the actual cook responsible for the food and you didn't know how to cook.
No, but my initial job was actually to help hiring all the staff that worked all these events, and I didn't know the difference between a head chef, commie chef, executive chef, silver service waiter, any of that stuff, and I had to learn. And then you'd be at these events, and someone say, you need to help over here because we're short staffed, and suddenly they'd be putting plates in your hands, and you'd have to go and do all this sort of stuff. And I've always been good at blagging it,
Okay.
that great English expression of making up as you go along. And it was just really exciting, and we worked 7 days a week and traveled all over the country and went to amazing places and met amazing people.
I mean, yeah, that's a great job for someone who wasn't exactly sure of their direction. Though I still think that I would prefer to sell washing machines. What should
Yeah.
I be looking for in a washing machine?
Well, according to my wife, I don't even know how they work. So I'm no expert anymore. But again, I was in this job, and they didn't really train you. Someone walked me around these washing machines and said they did this and that, and I didn't really pay attention. And then suddenly you got someone who wants to spend a few £100s, and there's this kid, thinking about rock music and comic books, and not how a front-loading washing machine should work. So
Well, there you go. You got the terminology.
yeah, no, it's good. I still remember it all every now and again. So,
I like
my catering skills are much better. I certainly learned how to cook while I was doing all that sort of stuff.
I like this idea of a young Mike Shackle, directionless, just bullshitting about washing machines, trying to flip them.
Well, I've always been jealous of people that have known from day one what they wanted to do, right? I saw your interview with Nick Martel, who's sickeningly good at what he does at a very young age, right? And he was like, oh, I always wanted to be a fantasy writer. And I'm like, you did? What? Like when? My concerns were, how am I going to earn money to go out and have a good time? How do I pay rent? Once I'd covered those basics off, and then it was only when I started thinking, well, maybe I need a career. I kind of stumbled from one thing to another.
I think a lot of us feel in that like directionless state. So everybody, hey, you could be Mike.
Fall up. That's the secret. Fall up.
You wrote, I was reading, you wrote this book while listening to U2's Joshua Tree album.
Yep.
You think anyone wrote to that U2 album that Apple forced onto your iTunes like years back? I don't even know, but I just remember that album being forced down our throats, and we had to listen to it, and it always pops up every time I go in a car.
Yeah, it wasn't their best album, and it's weird because back when the Joshua Tree came out, they were the biggest band in the world, and I thought they're amazing. And then, like the rest of the world, they just got uncool, and we all stopped listening to them. And I started sort of writing little ideas for We Are the Dead Down. Excuse me, while I choked to death.
Would be.
I have no idea. I have no idea why I picked up the Joshua Tree. Right, I hadn't listened to it for 20 years, but for some reason I was just, I'll put that on, and just sonically, it just seemed to transport me into the right place. And there was one particular song, "Bullet the Blue Sky," which was written about the war in El Salvador, and just the chaos of that song was just perfect for what was in my mind. And I like listening to music while I write, and I just had that on a loop because I knew it all so well. You didn't really need to listen to it, and the words didn't distract me because it just became wallpaper. But it became a quick shortcut to getting into the mind space of death and destruction and everything else that We Are the Dead's all about.
I still like this idea that someone out there's favorite album is the album that Apple forced you to listen to if you got an iPhone.
But, I mean, that's the beauty of art, though, isn't it? There's stuff that I love that other people would just think is ridiculous, and vice versa. There's really popular things that everyone raves about, and I look at in confusion that
right
is so popular. So that's good.
This one is going a completely different other direction. This
Okay.
6 a.m. swim club you go to. I've been looking at your Instagram pictures. Are you the only one in this club? I'm a little alarmed. It's always an empty pool.
Well, I normally get there first. It's closed now because it's winter and it's getting very cold. But it's right at the back of my house and it's beautiful. And I get up anyway. I get up at 5 every day because normally I write then when everyone's asleep and the house is quiet. But over the summer, I just walked around the corner, and some days there were 3 of us in there, and other days it'd be quite busy. But it's great. It was a wonderful way to start the day, and the sun would come up, and I'd just paddle up and down. I had to go in the. I'm not like Nick. I'm like an ultra slow swimmer.
I forgot about that. Yeah.
I just paddle up and down and do my laps and get out, and that's fine.
If you're listening, Nick, Mike said before this interview and before I started recording, he'd smoke you in a swim race.
And my son who's 10 is really good. He's racing against sort of 12, 13-year-olds at the moment. So I was listening to Nick's story with interest. Maybe
we should do
maybe my son could take Nick on, he might win.
We need to get Nick to be like a Jedi master for him. There we go. Now we got some content. You mentioned that your writing can be influenced by a lot of things, but one thing specifically I pointed out that you said you could be influenced by a couple arguing on the subway. Was there a specific argument that you overheard that was influenced you?
The best argument I ever heard was at a Comic-Con, and there was a couple, and he was dressed as Darth Vader, and he had the going on, and his girlfriend, who wasn't dressed as anything, was just laying into him. She was like, "You're so ridiculous. Why do you have to be like this?" And Darth Vader's like, "Can we not talk about this now?" Just like, "Oh, just take that mask off." "I can't take the mask off." And it was just all these people are standing around them, just laughing at this sort of horrific argument going on. But yeah, no, I love people watching. I love listening to conversations and things like that. And I think if you're an artist of any sort, you need to just see the world and steal and you get inspired from all sorts of things.
That I have this vision of just like, what did she not think to say anything to him before he got in the costume?
These are my people,
Oh my God, I could see that had to be so funny. The longer you dance naked in the rain, the greater the chance of getting hit by lightning. Did you take that Joe Abercrombie advice figuratively or literally?
My lawyers have said I can't answer that question anymore. So I cannot confirm nor deny the truth. That no, and again, I think it was, and it's like the Joshua Tree. Suddenly, there's no reason why I would listen to it, but I picked it up and it clicked something and made something work. And I think stuff happens in your life that if you, for some reason, it appears when you need it, and it helps you through a point. And I'd been writing for a few years, and I'd written 3 books, and each book I'd sent off to agents and got really good feedback from, and really polite rejections. They weren't form letters. They were, this is really good, but it's not quite what we're looking for now, and things like that. And writing's hard. You have to get up early or you stay late, and it occupies so much of your time. And I just suddenly thought, I'm not going to make that next step up to being a professional author. And I had this sort of crisis of confidence of, do I carry on or do I have a life? I've got 2 young kids. There's plenty of stuff on Netflix that I want to watch. Oof. And soccer games to see and things like that. So I was literally on the verge of giving up, and I saw a tweet that Joe Abercrombie had been interviewed for a podcast called the Bestseller Experiment. Yeah, and I'd never listened to a podcast at that point, right? And I clicked on the link, and I remember being really, really annoyed that I couldn't just read the interview. How dare they expect me to download something and listen to it? But I did, and it was just that bit of advice just struck home, because I realized the only thing I could guarantee was not succeeding if I gave up, right? That is the only, and the one thing that any successful author, athlete, celebrity, or whatever has in common is at one point they weren't successful, right?
Ooh.
So that and that's that kind of moment of realization. So giving up guarantees failure. To carry on, there's a chance. There might only be a small chance, but there's a chance. And then I just remembered that I enjoyed writing because I enjoy telling stories. That kid that wrote The Ultra Warrior when he was 11 or 12 is still really who I am.
Right.
And as long as you enjoy writing, then the experience of doing it and the time spent on it is better than a lot of other hobbies out there. So I thought I'd give it another go, and I'd write another book. And I just started writing this list of the things that I really liked reading about, the kind of books I enjoyed, and from that, ideas just started forming on the page. And again, it was quite special, the way it all suddenly fell into place. It's never been that easy since, but at the time it was great.
Now, Mike, if you by accident at that point downloaded this podcast, would that have tipped you over the edge to quit? Would you have been like, fuck this?
No, I love listening to creative people talk about all the things that make them who they are. I love the craziness of it all. I don't care if they're architects, writers, filmmakers. I just love the madness that goes on in all our brains.
That was a nice way of saying, yes, I would have quit if I listened to this show instead of the Bestseller Experiment. How's the picture book about Patsy the Penguin going?
I've done 2 picture books, and if I'd known, I would have gotten. Patsy and the Penguin. I only printed 1 copy of that for my.
A 1 of 1.
Yeah. Hold on.
All right, Mike is going to go get the picture book. I'm eagerly anticipating this. Oh my God! Holy shit! Check out the YouTube, and you can see this exclusive one of one.
Zoe and the Penguin. Let's do all our favorite things, and she just. It was all about, I'm bored and what should we do? So it was.
Wait, don't spoil it.
Yeah, and at the end they die horribly.
That's what I This is incredible.
Yeah, and then I did another one when lockdown happened. I found it. I was writing book 3, and I was finding it really difficult getting into this kind of dark world with the real world sort of falling apart around us. So I did another book, and I should remember what it's called. I can't remember what it's called, but that one is available on Amazon under my pen name of Mike Arthur. But again, that's a book about a little girl trying to find her courage. It's called I Believe in Me.
Okay, there we go. Good. Now we can get some royalties on this.
Yeah, but no, they're just fun things to do as a break from the real writing. I started writing books as a hobby to get away from my day job, and where I could be creative without people telling me what to do. And then when writing became a job, the drawing and stuff like that is a way of relaxing, being creative without any expectations.
Man, that is cool. Speaking of your day job, in a 2016 interview with Arabad, you mentioned that Dubai is at a tipping point creatively. Has it since finally tipped?
Well, you really have done your research, haven't you? It was a fantastic experience working there, but it was very challenging in many ways. But yeah, I did some cool stuff, and we won lots of creative awards and stuff like that. I'm very happy to be living in Canada now. That's all I can diplomatically say on the subject.
That's kind of how the interview came off. You mentioned that you can add with swords and magic to any concept, and it will become significantly better. Can I test this?
Yes.
I've got some pitches to you. 50 Shades of Grey with swords and magic. Better?
Yeah, completely.
All right.
Come on, you got a kinky wizard. Who's getting it on with the king of the castle. It works.
Okay, if that one didn't get you, Are You There, God? It's me, Margaret, with swords and magic.
I don't know that book. So I don't know that one. Obviously, my literary knowledge is poor on that one.
All right, fine. I feel like that was a good cop out.
But even like Grey's Anatomy.
That one is the one you gave as an example. That sounds cool, though.
That's cool, right? There's a war going on. These are the medics trying to save everyone. There's tension in there. That becomes very cool.
All right, last one, The Catcher in the Rye with swords and magic.
Yeah, I think that would work.
No, nothing can improve that book. It's terrible.
Exactly. Well, it'd make it a little bit more interesting.
You should have seen the books I had written down first. Not appropriate.
No, but I think that I believe in high concept ideas. When I first started writing books, and people would say to me, "What's it all about?" I'd be there for 10 hours trying to explain, well, the secondary world where, and it'd just go on forever. And I think even with We Are the Dead, I knew I had something when I could sum it up in a couple of sentences. When I said to them, it's about the bad guys won, the war's over, all the heroes are dead, and it's just people like us trying to survive. And everyone just got it. They're like, "Oh my god, that sounds really interesting." I think my daughter's having a shout about something in the background.
Do you want to check that out? Do you want to bring her on? We can interview her.
No, it's fine. As long as nothing's burning, it's fine.
That would certainly make the YouTube video better. It'd be real exciting.
Smoke suddenly starts coming. But I think that's that's when you've got a good idea that becomes really interesting. So yeah, my next series is a ... with swords and magic.
Woo! Stay tuned.
And whoever I've said it to has just gone, "That is so cool." So I'm very, very happy with that one.
Well, that's a good way to put it. I think this will be the last question until we start talking about the book. In 2012, you asked Larry Roston Have you ever had someone write in and complain that someone's holding a gun incorrectly, or you got some small detail incorrect in regards to like his covers? Were you concerned about this for yourself?
No, it's weird what people pick up on and make comments on. I think, that I've had a few people that have mistaken opinions of characters in my books as some kind of personal opinion that I'm putting across. There's in the second book, there are concentration camps where basically immigrants are being put into, war refugees are being placed in. And I got accused of pushing a anti-immigration agenda, which is like, have you read the book? Like, there's, and for someone who, my whole career, I've basically been an immigrant, right? I've lived,
Right. You're like a
um,
traveling
you know,
wanderlust
whether
man.
it's Hong Kong, Singapore, China, New York. I think it's funny if I'm a white guy, right? And white people seem to talk about if they're an immigrant, they're an expat, and suddenly it's cool and sexy and stuff. But really, you've left home looking for work and to have a better life for yourself and your family, and that's what any immigrant to any country is doing. And it just puts this horrible veil of privilege across it, and I would meet people that would be in these amazing countries treating where they are with utter disdain, and the people around them with disdain, and it horrified me because I felt very lucky and privileged to be in their countries and being able to work there. And I love being a foreigner because you get to experience life that you wouldn't normally experience. Even here in Canada, I walk around, I stare at the mountains because I've never lived anywhere where I can see snow-capped mountains out my
Right.
window. But the people that live here don't even notice them because they've always been there. And I just love having this kind of fresh eyes on the world. So I love being an immigrant. I love experiencing it all, and I'm certainly not pushing a anti-immigrant agenda in my books.
Right. I would
It's far from that.
it would be very interesting if after spending your whole life working and traveling in different countries, your takeaway was people shouldn't be allowed to do this. Though in Dubai, they actually built a snow covered mountain. So you could have seen that.
Inside a shopping mall, yeah, you
That mall is
go
incredible.
go see a movie and go skiing at the same time.
It's crazy, that mall. All right. I think we're ready to start talking about the book. As
Okay,
always, these questions are spoiler related. So if you have not read the book yet, what the fuck are you doing?
it's go now. Rush off by We Are the Dead, and
There
then
we
listen
go.
to this.
All right. My first question: is there any group out there whose mantra is "We are the living"?
Not in my books, no. Everyone does. It's funny, and particularly because I finished the third book now, and I went into the whole series with this idea of no one is safe, and I
That
think,
rings true.
I think there's something. When I was at college, I used to be in the army part time, and we'd do training sessions, and you'd learn all these tactics and stuff like that. And you'd be firing blanks around, and it was all quite exciting. And I remember going to a paintball thing, right? I'm trained. I've got the gear on. I look professional. And I remember just running and just getting shot, and it was nothing to what I was doing. There was just a bullet there, and a paint bullet, and that was it. And there's a brilliant writer called Greg Rucka who writes comic books, and he wrote the Old Guard movie.
Okay.
And he wrote a comic series called Queen and Country about the spy. And she says there's a great line. She said you don't have to worry about the bullet with your name on it. It's all those marked to whom it may concern that you need to worry about. And that's
a
it, right?
badass
War,
line.
yeah, I mean, war is awful, and you could, maybe if you're Aragon or Logan Nine Fingers and stuff like that, you can wade into these things with a bit of confidence. But people like me, you know. So in these books, you know, you could be running along, and if a bomb goes off there, I'm sorry, main character, you're dead.
That
You
is
know.
true.
So and it got really, when I was writing the third book, my father's like, "You are going to give it a happy ending, aren't you? There is going to be a happy ending of this."
Depends on your definition of happy.
Yeah.
Okay, the Weeping Man, with who have the teardrops on their face when they
Yep.
kill someone. Are they Gia's version of the Bloods?
They are nasty people. They really are. You know, the joys of being a writer. I spent probably 2 days trying to come up with a name for the Weeping Men. You know, and there were a couple of drafts where they had completely different names. My editor was just like, "This is rubbish. You've got to come up
What were
with."
some of them? What were some of the rejects? Do you remember?
I can't even
You
remember now.
burned out the memories.
No, because once you rewrite something, like the only draft is the final draft, and you know, and it was always genius. But yeah, I spent 2 days just writing out gang names, trying to come up with something cool, and then I remembered the, you know, the tattoos from the Mexican drug gangs and stuff. And there you go. I stole it.
There you go. Some would say you improved it. Based on Jax's statements to Darius, I need to know the Igrail confirmed goat fuckers or not?
They spend a lot of time in the countryside on mountain slopes.
Beautiful.
And if a man gets
coming,
if a man gets cold and lonely, who am I to say what's right or what's not? You know, it's no, like, you know, I come from Britain, and the English call Welsh people sheep shaggers. You know, so it didn't take much to twist that into what it is, and I can't say it out loud because my kids are in the next room. They'll be like, "Why is Daddy swearing again?"
You are dancing around it beautifully, though. It's a master class in being a good dad.
Of course. Well, again, there are many people who would disagree. Yeah.
Would those same people be the ones who said you don't know how to use a washing machine?
No, well, yeah. Well, actually, it's normally my 6-year-old when it's bedtime. She's like, "I hate you. You're the worst."
Oh man, brutal. Well, that's how you. Some come with sugar, some come with spice to get what they want. What's up with Nozier Smith Salas? The country's been taken over, and all she cares about is finding out if Yas has gentleman callers or not. Like, doesn't she got bigger things to worry about?
Yeah, but I think
hot gossip's fun. Let's not discredit that.
Yeah, no, and it is, and I think that again, when you live a life under wartime, I think you adjust quite quick. You know, even with everything that's been going on with the pandemic, you know, people adjust to what life is. You know, the new normal. And really, I think that is, if you've got nothing but fear around you and horrible things, you're looking for a bit of spice and something to liven it up. And you know, and who's knocking on whose door at what time of night? It's better to talk about that than who got hung that day. So yeah, you know, a bit of dark humor every now and again, or a bit of gossip, so it helps you survive.
I mean, listen, that's what I would be doing. You gotta distract yourself somehow. How awesome would it be to be given a magic sword that makes you invincible, and then how shitty is it to find out that it doesn't?
It's funny with that because there have been a few people that have gone like, "That's just the most obvious thing in the world." We knew the moment Tinstra was given the magic sword that was going to keep us safe that it was all bullshit, right? We knew, and they say it like criticism, and it's like, no, that was the point. You know, you're all supposed to know. She should have known if she wasn't so desperate. But again, I think when you're in that situation, you need to cling on to anything that's going to give you hope.
Right.
And all that was this placebo that gave her hope and managed to get her through to the next few phases
Hey,
of it.
listen, placebo effect works.
And it does. I mean, it's like, but it was meant to be a really obvious, it wasn't meant to trick anyone other than Tinstra to, show how gullible she was and desperate.
Hey, man, if you want to believe that sword could have made her invincible, who knows? All right, this is the worst question. I'm gonna get this one out of the way. Has anyone ever called Asgard Ass God?
I have typed that quite a few times. that is, I hate coming up with names, right? Making up names is
right. I can imagine. Sucks.
And I've killed off an awful lot of people. I started off killing off people I didn't like in the first book. And then the body count got so high I had to start killing off people I did like. But yeah, Asgard, it started off as a god, which turned into Asgard. Yeah, so it was a typo that I should have thought about before I came up with the name.
I don't think a warrior would have gotten trapped in a water tower. You'd be surprised. That really? That happens?
I don't know. It's yeah. I mean, I think that the kind of myth of when all this bad stuff happens is all of us kind of think that, when the time comes, we'd be really brave, right? And we'd be running out there and we'd fight the bad guys and we'd all be heroes.
Right.
But I've got this fear that if my time came, I would just be hiding in a cupboard, hoping that they all just went past and everything else like that. And really that moment with Yaz was an element of that, because she could have made the jump, but instead she chose to hide and nearly died as a result of that. Yeah, that was just pick the wrong cupboard to hide into.
On a more serious note, one of the goals of this podcast is to break that stereotypical traditional view of fantasy that it's all straight white men writing about like misogynistic characters who save the helpless princess, and it takes place in like a Euro setting. It's read by neckbeards in their mom's basement, and the guy is getting with all the girls and solving all the problems and being this machismo man. What about your books kind of breaks that stereotypical view and either brings fantasy to a more general, broader audience, or brings it to an audience that is not what you would stereotypically expect?
Well, I'm not sure if I've got any of those things in it. My heroes can only very loosely be called heroes, right? We've got Tinstra as a 19-year-old girl who's a coward. Dren is a 16-year-old psychopathic terrorist. Jax is a one-armed general who's lost, only ever really had one major battle and lost it. And Yaz is a single mother. None of those are, Brad Pitt isn't going to play any of the characters in the movie. The world is Asian inspired, right? I spent most of my life living in Asia, and there's huge amount of influence between the Japanese and Chinese wars going on, and I didn't mention anyone's skin color, but only the bad guys are white. They're the ones with blue eyes that have turned up. And if you speak Chinese, some of the country names might mean a bit more to you, which Maigor is Mandarin for United States.
Really?
Yep. So the fact they flee there and what they experience there, you know, that there's that in it. But yeah, and it's funny. It's I've had a couple of complaints about Tinstra and the way she powers up over the course of the series, but it's only ever men that complain about strong women. You know, it's
Right.
only, you know, it is that probably that basement dwelling dude that just
Neckbeard, yeah.
wants, yeah, neckbeard with you know, with a big sword waving around, feeling, you know, super powerful. That struggle with a woman that has real emotions and you know, is the star of the show. To be honest,
Yeah.
most of the men are idiots in my books,
Well,
which I tend to
Dren
find
is
is true in real life, you know. So
I mean, Dren is not a hero. He starts off the book suicide bombing people.
mm,
That's a great answer, and it is true. Your book definitely highlights a lot of different aspects of like real people, which
yeah.
turn out not to be these super machismo men.
It's actually it's funny because someone read an early draft and they told me to not make it so Asian, and you know, so like Asian fantasy doesn't sell. Like
Wrong.
there's you know, and all that sort of stuff. So the only real change I was seeing where Tinstra buys a loaf of bread, and in the original draft she was buying a bag of rice. So
Okay.
my sole concession to de-Asianizing, if that's a word, the book was swapping, you know, rice for bread. I'm like, okay, they don't have rice, they have bread, it's fine. But and again, all the, you know, there's a lot of Chinese and Japanese words in there that I've used and abused, that no one even picked up on because to most people it doesn't mean anything.
Yeah, I mean, I missed every single reference there, so that goes to show you. Normally, I follow up that super serious question with the other thing that this show always does. This is the number one fantasy book podcast for talking about dick jokes in books, and your book had me cracking up 20 pages in. Um, do you think that the Shulka are just being poor sports and they didn't appreciate the artistry of Dren?
It's funny when I first wrote the book, the start of the book wasn't there. It actually started with the country under occupation, and
And you thought,
my
I need to add a
no,
graffiti
no,
dick?
my editor at the time was like, this is great, but I think we need to see the attack happening, you know. And again, it was just one of those great bits of advice, you know. And then obviously Dren doesn't have any reason to be this angry young man, and I thought, well, if he's just a troublemaker, what does a 16-year-old kid do when they're out, you know, causing trouble? And painting dicks on walls is, you know, something a lot of us have done in our lives. So yeah, it seemed right.
I mean, he's like Banksy. How how
Yeah.
big was it though? Like, was it like just massive, took up the whole wall?
That's up to your imagination. You know, what's big to one person is, you know, not that impressive to another.
That's how you stay inclusive. All sizes matter.
It's what you do with it.
Darius was kind of justified in killing his sister, right? There's nothing now, maybe not the killing part, but there's nothing more infuriating than being told you're acting up and you need to calm down before we can talk.
Has that ever worked?
No,
Like
never worked.
In the history of mankind, someone saying you need to calm down, right? You need. That's just like gasoline on the fire, and you know, we're off. It's funny because my sister was just like, oh, you know, am I in the book? And I'm like, well, there is a brother sister relationship in it. Not really sure if it's based on you or not, you know. So, but like Darius was just a joy to write, you know, and that came from. I wanted someone who was the complete opposite of Tinstra, right? You know, she was just scared of everything and hated being in this environment, and Darius like, it's a dream come true to him, right? Because he just wants to hurt people, and he really can't be hurt in return. So that joy came along from that, and then I was thinking about what would be the nicest superpower, right? You know, what's more beneficial to people than someone that can heal the sick and the injured and take pain away and everything else. And then when you put that in the hands of a psychopath, you know, suddenly it opens up this, you know, huge, wonderful world. And I love writing his character. He's just so much fun.
Well, that brings me
his special.
That does bring me to the one segment we do on this show. It's where I pitch you a novella idea and you lie to me and tell me you like it. So this is what the book's called, Darius Dilemma, and it's kind of an alternate turn on events. Darius, he loves being a butcher, and unfortunately he's run out of people to torture, and he decides it's time to, you know, turn his passion into a profession, and he opens up a butcher shop. And he's got to adjust to, you know, civilian life, and he's got to practice cutting. He uses all his cutting techniques, but he's having problems because he's only ever cut live people before, and now he's got to cut dead meat.
Yeah, but it'd actually be a great job for him because he could cut, you know, the lamb's leg off and then grow another one and cut it off again and grow another one and cut it off, and you just have an endless supply of stock.
Holy shit, I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, no, it's good, you know. You want a chicken wing? Here, have one. I'll grow another one in 2 minutes. You know, it'd be fantastic. No, I think Darius, you know, he is he's just a joy. He'd have fun doing whatever he was doing. You know, he'd find a way of making it special somehow.
I mean, you know? Yeah, he really finds the joy in the little things in life.
Yeah, exactly. He's a man who enjoys his work. That's what I like to say.
That's all you could ever ask out of people. It's hard.
Exactly.
If you were, when you were in your early 20s, that's what you were looking for. Just finding something you loved. Fortunately, you didn't go his route, but maybe you did. I don't know. Yeah. You traveled a lot.
No, I'm a bit too squeamish for all that kind of stuff, you know.
Nah, fuck that. Is that the most awesome last words?
Did I write that?
Yes, you did.
What happened before?
Tinstra was trying to get through a checkpoint and she was being real soft about it. And then her brother tries to distract the guards and then gets hit with the.
Well, there's a scene in the end of the second book, which the character says, you know, he says to the girl, "Hi, I'm blank, and I'm here to F you up." And someone I won a book from me, and he told me that was his favorite scene. So I drew an illustration of Dren, you know. I've obviously ruined who the blank was in that case, but drew a picture of Dren, you know, saying, you know, "I'm here to F you up," you know. So that's a special moment.
I think that's a good place to start. I was gonna say, nah, fuck that, and then just end the interview, but I feel like that was a little, that might have been a little much. Thank you so much for taking the time out. Where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter at Mike Shackle. I'm on Instagram at Mike Shackle. Facebook, I'm Mike Shackle author. And all those good places, really.
And people can find your books where they sell books.
Well, hopefully so. It's, you know, it's at the moment with paper shortages and shipping problems and everything else, who knows? But they should be in all good bookshops and definitely on Amazon and anywhere like that. And everyone should go buy them right away.
Buy them right away and buy them twice because you might lose them. And then what are you going to do?
And then give them to friends and everything else. So 3 copies minimum.
3 copies minimum. And that's how you get on the NYT bestseller. Thank you so much for taking the time out for this.
Excellent. Thank you very much for having me.
There's something to be said about a guy who goes by Mike. As someone who also goes by Mike, I found that very refreshing. That was just a random tidbit about the whole interview, and I don't know in what context that matters. But let's talk about more show announcements. This was the 48th interview I've done this year. 48 fucking interviews. So, if you have a favorite fantasy author, or someone that you at least like somewhat more than the average author, chances are I interviewed them. So go check those out. The backlog is on all the listening platforms, definitely. And YouTube has most of them on there. There is one with Nick Martell that I'm so sad that I filmed in slow-mo, and the video quality is absolutely awful. And I imagine a lot of people's entry point into the show was Nick Martell, since he's fucking awesome, and that video is terrible, and every day it haunts me. I don't know why I'm rambling at the end of this. Usually I like to wrap this shit up quick. The closing statements. Books on the horizon is Legacy of Ash by Matthew Ward. I just talked to him this morning of recording this, and let me tell you, that's a fun one. What an incredibly smart, knowledgeable about the most random shit individual I've ever talked to. And I can't wait to bring that to you guys next week. After that is Paladin Unbound by Jeffrey Spite. I'm super excited about that one. It's been like 6 months in the coming, just, scheduling, working out, and his release date and stuff like that. So I'm glad to see it's getting a positive reception, and I'm looking forward to talking to him about it. And after that, I honestly don't know. So if you're an author, keep your inbox open. Or keep on reading or something. Peace.